Alright, since my last update, I've added quite a lot. One of the things would be this flame spell that I've added. So before it was just a projectile, but now it's an actual. They look like flames rather than just having just a single projectile ball flying through the air. Alright, so now that's out of the way. One of the main things I changed was the movement system. So right now I'm still using the old movement system, and you can see it's a bit clunky. And if I go to this view, I move really fast, the legs just glitch everywhere, trying to change. And if I try and run around, it's a bit clunky and jumping, even jumping forward. And if I get to a rock here and I try and jump on it, it's a bit clunky. So I've changed that up. First of all, I'll show you a bit of the quest system. So you go up to an NPC, interact, and then, okay, kill the enemies behind my house and kill 2 enemies. So I accept the quest, and that's updated. So if I want, I can view it. So I press U, and there it is. I can click on it, and then, okay, so my first objective I can see, while the second I can't. So the first one, let's go and kill the enemies. And so I'll choose some water, and I'll shoot. And then take him down. And then another one over here. Now he's down there, that's updated. Whoops. Let's turn that off. And if I check in the quest log, okay, return to the man. So, okay, I return to him. And the quest is complete. Now I can interact and then turn it in. And there you go, complete. And I have a look, and it's completed up here, and it's all done. So I'm going to jump to the newer system, newer movement system, and see how that looks. So this is the Advanced Locomotion System version 4, which is free on the Unreal Engine store, and it's a great asset to use. It's got so many things in it, and compared to my old system, which was the root motion, and this is script motion, with root motion, if I have some animations that are just rough and I try and interpretate between them, I can get a bit of stutter, while in this one, in the script motion, it's just a constant speed, and it's really easy to put animations in, take them out. And one of the great things about this is that it has a climbing system. So if I go up to this little thing here and jump up, I jump up on the ledge. And yeah, it's just the jumping's a lot smoother overall, and I've incorporated the quest system as well. So we can see that if I go up to this NPC over here and do this one. So pass through the portal. Okay, and let's go through the portal. And now I'm in the other area. And we walk through. And what's really cool about this is that if I go up to here and I jump up on it, which is pretty neat. Oh, and also you can do like a roll if you double tap the keys. And it's a great little system that there is. And for this quest, which I was just doing before, I originally wanted to, so I used this to interact, say as I was waiting at the log and it goes to night. But I originally wanted to do it so when I go through, and it takes me to this new area. All my assets all changed up now that I've updated it. I wanted the actual quest system to come through, but there was a problem in that the actual quests were bound in the world to the characters they were on. So I was having a bit of issues with that, trying to fix them up. And I haven't actually been here since I've redone my asset, which you're going to see later. So it's kind of neat to see that. So let's jump back to the other world. So I've jumped back to the other world, or the main one, and this was my older rock asset that I had before. And for example, it was using a triplanar mapping. So if I move it, the actual textures are mapped to the world, and there's no UVs required. So this is my older one, and I'm going to switch to my new one, which I sculpted in Blender and textured in Substance. And this is over here, so let's jump right in. So now we're in, and what's really cool about the climbing system is that it works pretty much anywhere. And if I Let's go up here and then jump up. So I had a few baking problems, but for now they're all right. So one of the quests that was down below is that you would come up here. You do the quest down there, come up here, reach the top. And here's the cliff asset smaller. So all over there it's really stretched out, while here it's smaller, so you can see it in more detail. And also there's some path bits here that I also did in Blender and Substance. I was just thinking how they kind of look like with the landscape. And then if I come up here, I've got, there's a bigger bit there, and then here's another rock that I did. And then a little brick, another rock, and then another asset, same one again. There's a big one in the middle. And what I found out is that you can, if you set these objects to static, you can paint grass on them, which is really cool. And here's another fancy weirdish one. And so I also worked on putting the gliding system in. So if I jump off and jump again, I can glide. So I had a bit of trouble getting that in the end, but I also like how the head, it blends and turns the way I'm looking. If we can jump back down. And also if I fall too fast, so I'll show you an example. Run over here, and if I jump and I fall, oh, that wasn't too high. Let me go up real high and then drop. So if I fall really fast, there's like a ragdoll. So I ragdoll and then get back up. That's really cool as well. Also, when implementing this system, I had a few issues. One was the back of the head. The actual head was clipping through the hair when I started running. So I fixed that up. And there was also, with the spell states. So all my spells are bound to the character, and I had to go through and re-put them in and redo all the animations. So one of the things I don't have compared to the old one is when I change spell, the actual arms have a little animation, but they don't in this one. And also got work in the lock on. So if I lock on this direction, the character stays locked on. And then when I get the spells out, it kind of follows where the mouse is looking. Which is a neat thing that's already in the system. So having a little look at my older player blueprint that I made. So this was my main one, and as you can see, there's a lot of clutter in one area. So it's pretty unoptimized. There was nothing really set in stone. It was just prototyping, testing, and easy animation sides. So like the walking in between the states, like the arms toggled, or it's a speed less than so much. Or if you're in the air, and if you jump and falling, like if you're a glide, then glide and do your glide, plug the animation. While the Advanced Locomotion System is, you've got your main base character here, and this is the event graph, so it's really nicely organized with everything, and it tells you how all the things work. It's really easy to add stuff in, take them out if I don't want them. And then the like a player input graph, so you've got different stances that it's got already incorporated, the movements. I go through, like if you're sprinting, you can walk or run. Some more actions. Rotation mode, so you've got the normal mode where you run around and the camera moves freely, and another one the camera is facing the direction and it locks on, which was on the spell system from before. And then over here I've added on my spell system, so I had to redo this logic. So is attacking, and then just to check if the spell's on the actor or not. and then change the overlay state and add like spell and shield or a spell, so I can do one hand or two hand, and that's just added on to the previous system that I made. And it's just toggling the spell system, changing the mode to aiming or the velocity direction, which is when I walk and the camera moves freely. And then up here with the gliding, so it's really easy to implement this, because all it was doing, it was going through the previous jump actions that already been set up, and I just added gliding into it, and it checks. And the mantle check is that if you're gliding and you jump on, hit a wall, you can jump up it or not. That's the mantle system. And then you have to start the gliding or stop it, and jump in the gliding start. And this is the little macro that I made before for it. And then yeah, interaction system. So with the quest, pick up or accept the quest, and then the spell choice. So when you press R, you get the spell wheel. But yeah, this is all from my previous one. Like the tick graph, so the health regen, light regen. And this is just setting different values. And then, so that's the base character and then the add-on character. So this system was mainly for, you have a base class, and then you can make all character variations to have different, their own animations, yeah, their own meshes and extra little ups and downs that they want. So for me, I just added the, for the ragdoll. So, I had this in before, but I took it back a level and just put it in the main one. I'm not sure where it is right now. But yeah, it's just so if you're falling so fast, and when you hit the ground, get the character velocity, check it all. If it's a value, then start the ragdoll. Or you can make it also if it's roll. So I would do that, connect that up to that. If it was a less value, it would roll when it hits the ground. But I was fine with just ragdolling. I'm not really interested in the roll. And here's the animation system for it. So it's really neatly laid out. I took this out because I don't actually have hands on my character right now, just for testing it out. Got all these different things, and it also has what you call it, feet IK. So the actual feet go to the IK on the terrain, and my rig is straight out of Mixamo. So this character was just put in Mixamo just a rigged, and then brought into Unreal and use the animation retarget system to just retarget the previous mesh that I've done from Mixamo, and all these animations are already in the system. And then I did my ones over the top. So for the spell, the arms go up, wherever I hold right click at my shield, so that overlays it. I can turn that off. And also for the gliding, so that's just, the gliding is just a static pose, but it works really nice and it blends all the animations together. So when I'm gliding, the head moves, a really nice movement. And if I'm gliding and I'll show it there, and I'm falling, I can just climb up. One of the biggest things I've worked on the past few weeks is this terrain generation. So it's all procedural done in Houdini, and I've followed along a tutorial with this. So first of all, we gather our shapes, which are some here. I just like project them all. I go through a bunch of stuff here. So you add some noise in, blur it out a bit. And then we go down to this path tool. And so what this path tool does is it gets a curve input, and then there's like this railway input. And if I jump inside it, you've got your main input, so your terrain input, then the curve and the rail, and there's a bunch of stuff it does. So this sweeps along the curve and it adds in this nice like sweep for it, and this is later used, then projected back on the terrain, so it's projected up. And there's all a clean up, and then same with the other stuff. And if I go to over here, oh wait, that's the bushes. Oh yeah, so this is the the blockhead of the path that it places, like the little bricks on the pathway. And over here you've got the railway tracks. So this is just up here. So for just testing purposes, it's just basic cubes stuck together, and then we align it, and if we sweep it, you get a really nice sweep in it. But I use orient instead, it's easier for placement when the instances come in. So if I jumped onto the bottom where there's the final output, so this is the train output, and then the merge here, you got all the other, so the bushes, the railway, the path. And if I merge it all together, take your bushes placed down, your railway, and then your path placement, and then your bit of precipitation. It works out, and that's from up here. So you got your road node, and inside the road you've got a bunch of stuff. So precipitation, choose the amount, how far it goes off the mask. And so that's for the path bit. And then we jump down to the bridges. So on the bridges you've got your main bridge shape, and then you've got the cutout. So if I show both of them, so yeah, there's the bridge and then the cutout there, and inside the tool, this is the final output you got. So I've just got an image in there from my Substance Designer, a texture that I made with normals on it, and it projects it onto the terrain. It makes the actual bridge, so you got the corner bits, and this is cut out from the terrain, so you're saving polygon count. And then if I head up to the top, so train input, and then your two switches, not switches, sorry, your two basic block out for the bridge and the cutout. So it goes through a bunch of stuff, and then you boolean out the middle of the bridge. So this is the bridge up here, and then you boolean out the cutout bit, dissolve it, and then you get left with the curves. Do a bit of a sweep on it, and then you bevel it, and then the detailed mesh, then you get this. And this comes from a basic grid, and then I project my UV on it and put a bit of noise and smooth it up, and then reduce it down, and that's just projected through this. And then there's the same with the other one. Oh, that's the inside bit. Oh, here's the other detail mesh. So then that's projected on there. And before it would have just been this, and then projected onto there. And then it's all joined together. And I've also got some vines, so you can't see them in here. Well, you can, yeah. So it works out with a gradient of where the vine should be placed. I just keep that up there. And it works out because these are all the points of where the vines can go, and then the end points, and it finds the shortest path. And I can change the seed around, it will change different paths, just sample it all together, and then I've just copied just boxes to see what it will kind of look like. So it just places all of the assets along the points, and then this actually goes to be instanced in Unreal. So you got your instanced outputs, and there's the instant points, and also at the top, on the top of the bridge, there's a walking platform instances out. So then you've got your geometry and your instant points. So that's for the bridge, and you can see here there's some of the erosion that it's done. So I don't have the switch right now, but what it does is when it puts it back into the terrain, I could actually jump in and look for it. Here we go. So this is where it goes onto the terrain, so that's normally, and then some erosion, so it brings up the terrain a bit, so then the bridge is placed nicely. And then for these points, for this mask, I can do it so I can get the points for that and put rocks down if I wanted them to be eroded down. And so next is the building. So this was a really cool one. So for here you have your basic input of just a box. And then we go through a lot of things. And we find out where should the buildings be placed. We have extrusion, and then for the building generator, what I've done is I've just got some boxes and bullied them out. So then there's one window, and then I've just converted it to voxels and then back and reduced it, and there's a window, and then the same for this one. Reduced it down. I use some placeholder just to see what I can come up with. And the generator places them all around, and on here on the right I've put in the different corners. I just changed the seed and other bits and bobs. And then we can get rid of the top and just merge everything together and just divide it down. And then with this side we've kept the top bit, which we didn't want before, and we jitter it up a bit and we get a sphere, and we did a bit of noise on it and copy that to points. So I got this, and then voxel it so it's all one mesh and boolean out of the building. And that cuts out the top bit for destruction. Delete some small parts. And then when we combined all of it together, so up the top here, this is for the this is for working out where bricks should be placed. So it finds out all the points, and in the end you got the top bit of where the bricks can be placed. And here's some like rubble, so where rubble can be placed, and that's just basic rubble. And then there's an ivy gen, so you get the building, turn it into one mesh, remesh. Same thing with the gradient from the bottom, and then with your points, you get all the numbers, and if you can sort them out, then you get a nice order. And then you group all the starter points on the bottom, and then you choose. So there's my random start points, and these are my end points, and then the shortest path. And then resample, so from that valley to there, so there's less points, and fuse if there's anything that can be joined up. And then just to see what it's kind of look like, they're placed along. And then got my instant points for Unreal, and then we can see down the bottom here, I've also got this on the bottom where it works out where bricks should be placed closest to the building or further away. And there's a final output. And then project on the terrain, so we move the landscape up if we needed to, so the building place is nice on it. Bit of cleanup. We've got the train output with some of the precipitation on it. And then the output with the building and the bricks around it. So there's the geometry output and the instant points from Unreal. That's the building generator. And then the cliff. As for the cliff generation, it works out by getting the terrain, and then it masks all of the areas of where it could go. And then it goes through and it clears out the areas it doesn't need. And then we add a bit of color variant in there. And then we blast if there's a color valley that we don't need, and get rid of some smaller parts. And we scatter the points around. And we move them out a little bit. And as I was testing, you kind of see where the cliffs would go, and they curve around the landscape. There's a lot there. I wouldn't have that many in the game, but just to see how it's kind of working. And then we've got the geometry output. And then with the terrain, it gets it all. And then we project the mesh onto the terrain, so then it brings it all up. And we just move it down a tiny bit. And then we've got the terrain output. And then here's some more scatter bits, or the instant points. So then you've got your leaves, your rocks that go down, and then the cliffs, instance. So all the cliffs would be placed. And then finally, the final bit is the texturing. So it goes through, finds out, okay, this will be the cliff part, and then this will be the ground grass part, and then put it as an Unreal material, and we merge to the final output, and then that's it done there. So you see all the buildings and the paths and the bridges. I don't have them ticked in here, but we'll jump in the engine to have a look at them. Okay, now we're back in Unreal, and all I've done is I've placed down my Houdini asset, and I've got some placeholder shapes, and this is a little tool that was also made in Houdini, so I can move this point, and it completely changes the geometry. And so I've just placed these down and used them to get some different variation on the terrain. So you've got these shapes over here, and then some over here as well. And then this one, you've got the bridge, so the main shape, and then the cutout, and then we can hide those, and you can see how it's cut it out. So I'm still testing stages, and there's been some problems with the orientations not carrying over. They did before, but I'm trying to figure out how they work properly. And this is the vine point, so I've just got a basic just leaf mesh down. They do need to be rotated, and the vine points kind of work. And here's the buildings from before, so I've just got to chuck on the textures for the bricks and then remove some. So that's worked in there, alright. Here's another building up here. And so what's really good about this is that, for example, say, okay, I don't want the building there, I wanted to move it a bit. I can just grab this, move this over here, rotate it around, put it down, let's make it a bit taller, drag it up a bit. Okay, that's my building, and this mountain, let's say I want to add another one, so I could paste this down, move this around. Just do that. Interesting shape, and I'll put that over there. So all I've got to do is click my main assets. I go up here, and on the right side you can see I've got, so for my terrain settings, I've got all the different values from Houdini that I can change with. The adding terrain and like subtracting if I wanted to have a lake or something. Got path, bridges, buildings, and cliffs. So for my buildings, I've got my cubes. So if I just start the selection, there's 1, 2, so they're my building. And then I'm going to enable the path. And then we're also going to enable the cliffs. So I'm back in Unreal and I've just recooked it. And I made a few changes beforehand and now it's messed up all my rotations again. So I've got to fix that again. And with the tool, I can change how many cliffs are actually placed on it and the size of them. So there's the railway tracks that go through and then the rocks. So now everything's all broken and messed up. There's a lot of issues, and I'm having a few problems with that because I've got my rocks, my grass, and my dirt. But when I put my dirt in, I get these big chunk cube errors. It's to do with the Houdini materials. So with the Houdini mast, I've only got the main mast as 1, 2, so rocks in the grass. But then when I'm combining the dirt over the top, I get these big artifacts of the black squares. So I've got to debug and fix that. And then, so yeah, these are the placements of the path. And also I just changed this asset down to the more vine-like one. So you can see how it's grown up a bit. And then, yeah, so, and also the actual terrain material, it needs to be more light and brighter, so to match these assets. But so yeah, I'm still figuring out how to get these properly all working. I've got to do a lot of debugging, trying to fix out the orientation of the curves and carry them over, because when they combine the points in Houdini, they mess up the rotation. So yeah, I got to fix that up. But yeah, so it's getting somewhere, and it's really easy because before I moved this building from over there to here, and it's moved it over, put it in properly, and it's a great tool. So I'm planning the futures. Once I fix this up properly, I'm just going to make my big terrain and just have all these block out shapes everywhere, and then just cook it, and it's there. And then I can add stuff over the top, take them off. I can choose, say, okay, I don't want all these grass, I want to switch them out on more variation. So then it works out what to place where. And also with the slope angles, I can change that. So I go back to over here on the tool on the right. And then, yeah, change the blur, the noise strength, so how noisy it can be. Just with a few values, and it redoes it instead of me manually going in, doing it all and random placing all the cliff assets. And because mainly I just want a prototype in the end to play and enjoy the level, to see how it is. And as well as doing this whole tutorial series that I've been following, it's taken me a good 2 weeks or so of time. That's like, some days I spend around like 6 to 8 hours, and that's multiple days. And it's just a lot of debugging and just following, trying to fix it all. But it's great learning all the different ins and outs of Houdini and how it can be used in Unreal. And I'm really happy that I'm working with this tool. Okay, another tool that I've worked on in Houdini is this cliff generator. So it's really rough right now, so I can go into it and I can change the extrude distance. That's all I can do for now. But what it does is it gets the terrain input, and then it works out the slopes, and then it finds them, and then I add a bit of noise, and then it randomly places. So in the future, I want these to be extruded flat along the top, so there's kind of like a right angle, so you get more of a cliff. So that's my end goal for that. And it adds a bit more variation into the cliff, so they're not just flat in one texture. So that's another bit that I'm happy to work on, and it'll be smoothed out even more. Yeah, I'm happy it's coming along kind of cool. So now we're in Blender, and what I've done is I've just made some basic polygons, and then I've sculpted them. So using the sculpting tool, just sculpted it, and then from that I made a low poly version. So I just got the rock, and then I added some decimate modifiers on it, and then just did an auto UV unwrap, because I'm not really fussed about the UVs right now. It's just to get them in the game to see what the final assets look like. So there's one of the boulders, and then you got another one, And then here's the cliff. As the cliff, the highest poly sculpt, and then the low one. I'll show that in substance a bit later. And then here's one of the other rocks. So there's the high one, and then the low. And there's another one there. There's another rock. And I'm working on this wall sculpt right now, so I'm still doing it. All I did is I got some random shapes, chucked them around, and then voxeled them together to make one mesh and just started sculpting. So I've still got to get rid of these triangle areas and just flatten the edges out and get a little less detail in there overall to make like a rock wall. So now we're in Substance Painter, and here's the cliff that I said beforehand. I'll show you. So all I've done is I've imported my low poly, and that's got my UVs on the right here. Just auto UV'd, unwrapped it just for the sake of testing. And then I've just gone down and baked my high to the low. So now that's in here. And then over the top is this single material. So I've made this up. So I've got the final edges, so the edges pop a bit more, and the grass layer, so if I don't want to have the grass on it, or have the grass on it, and that's worked out by the normals, so I can change the normal angle around and have it on the side if I want, or the bottom. And then we have a gradient for the dirt valley, so down the bottom it's more darker, up the top it's lighter, and also just a bit of an edge, and then the base color, which is under everything. So yeah, I've used this smart material, which is on the right here, and that's just down here for me. Because before I had this one, so I'll get rid of that, put this one in. But it's a lot darker, and in the engine it's really dark, so I just brightened it up a bit and just remade it. So for some of my rocks, I've just used this and turned off the grass, and that's that done. So I really like this color scheme right now. It's a nice stylized, and I'm just going to stick with it just to prototype it, and then I'll change it along the way, and the final probably a lot different to it. But yeah, that's my substance workflow that I do. Okay, so this is my overall work time, and I've done 586 hours so far. But I first started in 2019 at the start, those 34 hours, and then during the time beforehand, and then since Unreal. So I did I think I spent around 200 or so hours in Unity, and then I jumped over to Unreal because I really wanted Houdini to integrate with it, and it worked really well with Unreal, while Unity, it was still really light on the surface and not a lot of assets. So I'll jump down to the bottom where I'm at now. And so the past few days I've been just mainly doing the sculpting, and I'm really happy that I started sculpting, because before it was just doing all the just Houdini background bits, just trying to get all the procedural tools. So you can see I spent these are hours, by the way, here's like 6 hours, 2 hours 30s. Yeah, just a lot of time trying to get behind the scenes work and all issues, and it doesn't look like there's a lot in the final project that I'm doing right now. But I'm happy that I started sculpting. I've been trying to do it for a while. I've found a style that I like, and I'm happy. It looks decent to me, so I like that. So I've got that started now, and that's motivated me even more to finish that Houdini bit off with the terrain, fix up the issues, and then I can just chuck my assets on and make just more and more, just keep going and pumping out stuff. And yeah, it's great that I'm doing that. And I go back a bit more, some of the quest system, and just working and adding this locomotion system, and what have a time in there. Let's put like 429. I forgot to put that in there. Okay. Not even here. Look at that. I'm missing out all these stuff. So you can just see my little notes that I do. Let's go up a bit more. Going back, now we're in May. Alright, the day-night cycle. Yeah, and it just, the score up goes on, and just, yeah, so every time I do a little session, I just log what I do for the day, how many hours it goes for. Look at that, 620 hours it jumped up because I fixed those little problems that were minus, another minus hours. Well, I'll fix it up behind the scenes anyway. So since the last semester, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. I really thought that I could do a lot more and get a lot more block out done, but I'm mainly focused on adding the new movement system and then working on Houdini in the background, and that kind of interrupted me blocking out the level because I thought about, I'm going with the Houdini approach of putting down just shapes for the landscape. Should I put the effort in now to manually do all the landscape and hand place the assets to get a look dev and a prototype in? But then I thought, if I want to make a change or a major change or something, I have to manually move everything. And so I thought, I'll get the Houdini bit out of the way, and then I just thought about, okay, I need some assets. So I started sculpting, and now I've done those sculpts, I'm happy with them. I can finish on my Houdini, put the sculpts in, and my assets will look really nice with it.